Sam Snead lived a tragic life despite being one of golf's greatest legends. He died at 89 in 2002, just 4 days before his 90th birthday, carrying with him the weight of golf's most famous curse, never winning the US Open despite 4 heartbreaking runner-up finishes. Snead was born on May 27, 1912, in the mountains of West Virginia, and became known for having the most perfect swing in golf history. He won 82 PGA Tour victories, a record that stood alone until Tiger Woods tied it decades later. He captured 3 Masters titles, 3 PGA championships, and 1 Open championship. But the US Open, golf's toughest test, always slipped through his fingers like sand. The 1939 US Open at Philadelphia Country Club haunted Snead for the rest of his life. He entered the final hole needing just a par to win his first major championship. But there were no scoreboards on the course back then, and a spectator gave him wrong information. The fan told Snead he needed a birdie to win when he actually only needed par. Playing aggressively on the par 5 72nd hole, Snead attempted a risky shot from a difficult lie. The ball found trouble, and he made a crushing triple bogey 8. That mistake left him 2 strokes behind the playoff participants and cost him the championship. This moment became a symbol of his US Open struggles and followed him throughout his career like a dark shadow. 8 years later in 1947, Snead got another chance. He tied for the lead and faced Lou Worsham in an 18-hole playoff. The playoff came down to the final hole where Snead had a 30-inch putt, basically a tap-in by professional standards. But the pressure got to him, and he missed. Worsham claimed victory while Snead walked away as runner-up once again. Those weren't his only close calls. In 1937, he lost to Ralph Guldahl after sharing the first-round lead with a 69. The disappointment stung because he had played so well early in the tournament. In 1953, he finished second to Ben Hogan in what would be his 4th and final runner-up finish at the US Open. Each time, Snead got close enough to taste victory, but never quite reached it. The pattern was always the same: brilliant play followed by crushing disappointment. Golf writers started calling it the Snead curse, and fans wondered if he would ever break through. The pressure mounted with each passing year as reporters constantly asked him about the missing major championship. The disappointments at the US Open were just part of what made Snead's life complicated. In 1952 at the Jacksonville Open, he faced a moral dilemma that showed his true character. Snead and Doug Ford finished tied at 280, setting up a playoff. During the second round, Snead's drive on the 10th hole, a 545-yard par 5, landed behind an out-of-bounds stake. Chick Harbert believed the ball was out of bounds, but a rules official ruled in Snead's favor. The official said players weren't properly informed that stakes had been moved after the previous day's play. Even though the ruling went his way, Snead felt uneasy about it. He knew other players and fans might question whether he deserved the favorable call. Rather than take advantage of what might have been a questionable call, Snead made a stunning decision. He forfeited the playoff, saying, "I want to be fair about it. I don't want anyone to think I took advantage of the ruling." This allowed Ford to claim his first PGA Tour win, while Snead's win total stayed at 82 instead of a potential 83. The incident showed Snead's integrity, but it also revealed how much pressure he felt to maintain his reputation. He chose fairness over victory, even when it cost him personally. Some people called him foolish for giving up a win, while others praised his sportsmanship. 7 years later in 1959, Snead faced another unusual situation during a televised match. He was competing against Mason Rudolph at the Mid-Ocean Club in Bermuda as part of NBC's World Championship Golf Series. The match was tied after 11 holes when Snead discovered something troubling in his golf bag. He had 15 clubs in his bag instead of the legal limit of 14. According to the rules of golf at that time, the penalty was a loss of hole for each hole played with the extra club. This meant Rudolph won immediately on the 12th hole by a score of 11-7. The match was essentially over due to Snead's equipment violation. But here's where it gets interesting. Instead of disqualifying himself mid-match and ruining the television broadcast, Snead deliberately missed putts on later holes to make sure Rudolph won. He didn't want to spoil the show for viewers or cause problems for the television producers who had invested in filming the match. The match aired in April 1960, and when Snead's admission came to light, it created major controversy. Golf purists were outraged that he had deliberately lost holes, even though he was already beaten by the rules violation. The sponsor canceled his further participation in the series, costing him future television appearance fees. This incident actually led to a rule change in 1964, capping the penalty for extra clubs at 2 holes in match play. But for Snead, it was another example of putting the game's integrity ahead of his own interests, even when it hurt him financially and professionally. Speaking of television and sports history, Today's viewers can watch legendary moments and heartbreaking losses across all sports thanks to Fubo. Whether you want to catch live golf tournaments or revisit classic matches from sports history, Fubo gives you access to over 100 channels of premium sports content. You can see how today's athletes handle pressure compared to legends like Sam Snead. From golf majors to football playoffs, FUBO covers all the moments that create or destroy athletic legacies. Sign up today and don't miss any of the action that creates tomorrow's sports legends. Despite these setbacks and moral dilemmas, Snead built an incredible career that spanned over 4 decades. He was known as Slammin' Sammy and became famous for wearing a straw hat during tournaments. His folksy image and natural talent made him a fan favorite wherever he played. From small-town courses to major championships, Snead set a scoring record with a 59 at the 1959 Greenbrier, showing he could still produce magic even in his later years. He won 8 Greater Greensboro Opens, proving his consistency over decades of competition. His swing was so smooth and powerful that other professionals would stop their own practice sessions just to watch him hit balls on the range. The longevity of his career was remarkable for any era, but especially impressive given the physical demands of professional golf. Snead competed at the highest level well into his 60s, adapting his game as equipment and courses changed around him. He remained competitive when most athletes would have long since retired to quieter lives. His swing became the gold standard that golf instructors used to teach students. The fluid motion and perfect tempo looked effortless, but it was the result of countless hours of practice and natural athletic ability. Even today, golf teachers show videos of Snead's swing to demonstrate proper technique and rhythm. But even with all his success and admiration from peers, the U.S. Open remained the one achievement that escaped him. Golf fans and writers constantly reminded him of this gap in his resume during interviews and tournament coverage. It became the defining narrative of his career, not what he accomplished, but what he couldn't quite achieve. The pressure of carrying this burden affected Snead in ways that weren't always visible to the public. He would sometimes seem tense during U.S. Open weeks, knowing that reporters would inevitably ask about his chances to finally break through. The weight of expectation grew heavier each year as his opportunities became fewer. When Snead died on May 23, 2002, obituaries focused heavily on his U.S. Open struggles alongside his achievements. The man who had one of the most beautiful swings in golf history was remembered as much for his failures as his victories. Even in death, the missing major championship remained part of his story. What made Snead's story truly sad wasn't that he failed. It was that his greatness never brought him complete peace. He won more tournaments than almost anyone in golf history, yet the one that mattered most to him always slipped away. His integrity in difficult situations showed his character, but it also cost him victories and created more frustration. The irony was that Snead's moral choices, forfeiting the Jacksonville playoff and deliberately losing after the club violation, showed him to be a man of principle. But those same principles sometimes worked against his competitive goals, creating internal conflicts that lasted throughout his career. Sam Snead's life proves that even legends carry burdens that success cannot heal. His perfect swing couldn't fix the imperfect moments that defined his legacy. He lived and died knowing he was one of golf's greatest players, but also knowing he never conquered the mountain that mattered most to him.